Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 311 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the Second Amendment podcast. It's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and tonight I am joined by the greatest hostess in the entire world, though she might be getting a little bit damp, Erin Paulette. Why don't you tell everyone how it's going?
Oh, God. All right. So I'm entering the fourth week of my depression here. And I would really like for people to stop getting sick and for things in the house to stop breaking. I haven't gone into a lot of detail, and I really don't intend to, but my mother is in screaming pain with something in her lower back. We think it's a sacroiliac. It's called a joint, although it hurts when it moves, so that's ironic. And we're now at the point of, okay, are we going to burn the nerve out, or are we going to have surgery? And that's fun. And there's also, we've got a problem in the garage. When a ceiling starts becoming three-dimensional, that's a problem. It's bulging, and there's cracks in the plaster, and it's right above, I think the term is the chiller box or condenser box or whatever for the AC unit, which is we need in Florida. And it's dripping water, and it's not just dripping water out of the exhaust, it's also dripping water out of the crack. And I'm having, one of the problems with being a pessimist and having a vibrant imagination is I can visualize all these terrible things happening, and I'm just imagining big chunks of the garage ceiling just falling to the floor and potentially taking our AC with it. So, in conclusion, new liver, same Eagles. How are you doing, Weer'd?
God, I'm just
classical reference.
It's a very good Prometheus reference. I was not ready for that one. You caught me unawares. I mean the good news is, the ceiling is effed no matter what, but the AC falling with it and all that, like it's not going to hurt the ceiling joists, but the plaster is effed up. And you mentioned they'd been here before, so hopefully they warrantied their work, and they will be nice enough to not gaslight you and say, "Oh no, this is totally something different," or maybe it is totally something different. But
yeah, see, that's the thing. We were having some AC issues, and so they came out and looked at it. Well, I mean, it was dripping before, and there was a problem with the chiller box, and they bondoed the hell out of it and whatever. And then a couple of days later, there's this, and I don't know if it was just a coincidence or because they reinforced the box, it weakened the ceiling, or worst case scenario, it leaked more. And, all the water, both the weight and then the moisture soaking all the thing is what's actually causing the bulge. And so, I mean, if they screwed it up, I hope that they'll make it right. But my faith in people is sorely, sorely tested. Yeah. I'm not even going to get into a homeowner's insurance claim about this. Just, y'all remember me griping about USAA and how we had to fight them for a year to get help with the water damage in the master suite, and now this, it's
well,
so
hopefully this will end in the least possibly bad alternative, because I mean, unfortunately the good ending's already taken up on the everything just works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And maybe after they fix this, everything will just work. Ugh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I feel like I asked this thank you. I feel like I've asked this before, but I don't remember an answer. How are you doing, Weer'd?
I'm doing pretty good. We're closing out the last week of summer, so the family's all home, and we've just been kind of bouncing around doing family stuff and chalking off a whole bunch of stuff that we've wanted to get done a lot sooner in the summer, but didn't happen because of either travel or family events. and all that. So it's feeling good to be home. Honestly, I love traveling, but I always like coming home at the end of it. So that's that part is feeling pretty good. And yeah, that's it. I will. Ryan called me. He's like, "Oh man, something's going on family wise with his." I won't go into details, but he's just like, "Oh, I can't do handgun radio tonight." And I'm like, "Well, I already talked to David and Oddball. They're already showed up. So tough luck. We don't need you." So that was we had a great discussion. I don't know when Ryan gets around to posting it, but we talked about double stack 1911s, which is a huge thing that I love, and all that. And it was kind of my good, both a fun show and a good deed. So that's that. And now it's time to dive into another podcast with the greatest Aaron Paulette.
So I'm gonna warn y'all. I am fried. Don't expect much from me. In fact, I'm going to take the idiot ball and run with it because I can manage that. So hey, Weer'd. I hear that machine guns are legal now. Does that mean I can go out and buy one?
I wish. Well, but they are potentially, though. Pollyanna me is skeptical as hell on this one. I have been on record saying the last of our rights that we are going to get back is going to be machine guns. And just because they're the ones that scare the normies the most. But that being said, there's a whole lot of court precedent that says, well, why? Why? What's wrong with machine guns? Because they are bearable arms, and I will say that I haven't read the entire court case because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not good at reading them. So it takes me way more time than I have to get very, very imperfect information. Though I have heard some other people cover this, but essentially, I believe they are. They're citing all the good cases. They're citing Heller with in common use and the fact that there's a whole lot of registered machine guns out there, far more than Kitano's stun guns, which was a court precedence on what common use was, and I think it was like hundred thousands in the numbers, and so that's a pretty low bar to clear. But also I believe I've heard other people say, and I don't know if it's specifically in the court thing, but I've heard other people citing the Miller case, which is always kind of a fun one. And the fact that it's a really crappy case. I'm not a huge fan of citing it very much, just because I think that it should have ended in mistrial, because at the end of the case, Miller was dead. His lawyer wasn't getting paid, so he didn't show up, and the court just decided to rule anyway, which seems really crappy. But essentially the story was Miller was a Depression era gangster, and he got pinched for carrying a sawed-off shotgun, and while he was in prison serving out the terms for his other crimes, he decided to make a plea to have the charges on the sawed-off shotgun dropped, because it was his Second Amendment right to have a sawed-off shotgun. And the court ruled that, in fact, you do have the right to bear military arms, but sawed-off shotguns are not military arms, which, for any even fair weather military historian, knows that the first firearms to be military firearms were short-barreled shotguns, or at least close to it. So that's going through. But either way, they're essentially pointing out the fact that, machine guns are bearable arms. This is, of course, the District Court of Kansas. So it may technically cover there, though. I assume the government is going to appeal this, because
of course they're going to appeal.
They there's one thing to kind of sit back with, I guess people can carry without a permit or something like that. But when it comes to people buying machine guns off the NFA registry, that's a genie that's pretty hard to get back into the bottle. So unfortunately, if you're in Kansas, or I don't know if there's a district around it, or if it's just the state of Kansas, no, unfortunately, you're not also able to buy machine guns. But it means that it's going to be appealed to the next court up and work its way to the Supreme Court of the United States. Though I will say that even the current court makeup that we have right now, I don't know if they've got the stones to do the right thing. Which, I mean, as far as all the court precedents goes, and the fact that private citizens owned dreadnoughts in the time of the founding of the United States. Article 1 of the Constitution. Article 1, not the First Amendment. No, before that. Article 1 of the Constitution talks about how you can apply for a letter of marque and hunt pirates, which would mean that you would have to have a ship capable of hunting pirates, which means that you essentially have what would be considered by any definition a warship. And so if you could own a warship that you could in theory occupy a port with, then the idea that like I could own an M4 or put a giggle switch on my FAL, it seems to be kind of a moot point. But we will see how this is going. Also, again, going on the Clarence Thomas, the NYSERPA test, which again, one of the more brilliant tests throwing in there. Cause oddly enough, I never heard anybody make this argument before I heard Thomas do it, which was the look at the time and the scope of just history. Look at the 100 years from when the Second Amendment was ratified to the civil rights era. And because that was the big change on when the only thing that was restricted, which was at the time of the founders, blacks and natives could not own firearms because they were considered not people. And the 14th Amendment said, they are people. And so that was the one gun control that was around at the time of the founding. And so he just said, look at all the other laws. Is there anything analogous? And we came up with metallic cartridges. We came up with breech loaders. We came up with repeating guns. We came up with semi-automatic guns. We came up with machine guns. The Maxim machine gun was around for like 50 years before before the NFA came around. And the NFA isn't even gun control. The NFA was just taxes. Like you could still buy one, you just had to pay more money and talk to the government first. So there was,
and of course, relying on old racist gun control laws is never a winning position in the first place.
Yeah. So there really isn't much support that says, like, the only support that we have that regular people can't just buy machine guns is the fact that it's always been this way. Is that, the NFA was in 1932 and the Hughes Amendment was in, 1986. And so it's been a long ass time since either you could just buy a machine gun free and clear. I don't think anyone was alive back then, or maybe a handful of centenarians, and or you could just go out and buy a brand new machine gun. Think about all the Stargate cosplayers who want to get a FNP 90. And you can get a short barreled one. You can shorten them down, but you can't get it in full auto because the P90 didn't exist before the Hughes Amendment. So there are none that are available unless you have an SOT, which is a pretty big commitment.
So because this was at the state level, and we know that they're going to appeal it, I believe the next level up are the district, the circuits, right?
There may first be the state appellate court, and then it goes up to the district.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what the state appellate court is like in Kansas, but just looking at Kansas is in the 10th circuit, which is kind of a mixed bag. It's got Kansas and Oklahoma and Utah. And I don't know, I haven't heard much out of Wyoming. I assume that they're fairly pro-gun, but it's also got the wacky anti-gun Colorado and New Mexico. So it's a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to make it to SCOTUS. I think it's going to make it at most up to the up to the circuit level and then get shot down. I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, I would love to be wrong as well, and I don't think that there's any good arguments on it. And I think that I think there's going to be a court that knows full well that they will not have any they won't have any legal standing to go against it, but they know that machine guns are scary and that they don't want them and that they're good to be banned because again, they've been banned forever. And so people are just terrified that that just everyone's going to be getting machine gunned down, and probably most of them haven't shot full auto and realized that it's really not that great. It's very useful in a few limited applications. And even if you talk to soldiers who've actually been in combat, and a lot of them, yeah, they really never flipped the switch on their M4. They were mostly just doing aimed shots. So yeah, I think that it's got there's going to be a lot of entropy that it's going to be fighting against, and so yeah. But it still, I wanted to lead with it because oh my god, the court ruled that the machine guns are bearable arms. Like I love just reading it, and we'll always have Paris.
I mean, just this ruling helps in future litigation, so it isn't going to be enough to shift the Overton window, but maybe it's a pebble that starts an avalanche much, much later.
All right, so next up, these are going to be all court cases, and they're all good ones. This one's another one from announcement from Costas Moros, and he's saying that there's been a court case that you kind of sprung this one on me, so I've been following this too deeply. I've heard about it, but essentially the court case is saying the right to carry does not end at the state lines, and California must at minimum allow non-residents to apply for a CCW permit here. I've certainly been hearing about this. I think someone's been doing this also for New York State, because New York State is another. I mean, obviously California is gigantic and there's huge amounts of industry and things like that. There's a lot of reasons for people to travel to California for business and pleasure, and California does not issue non-resident permits. Same thing goes with New York. And the big thing with New York is that it is a gigantic state that essentially cuts New England off from the rest of the country. So if you are trying to traverse the East Coast, you're going to have to set foot into New York at some point, unless you're traveling by air. And New York also does not issue non-resident permits. And so the statement is that there should at least be some means for somebody entering the state to legally carry a firearm.
Yeah, I was doing a quick check, and shout out to USCCA for their wonderful concealed carry reciprocity map. Which state's permits does California honor? California does not honor any other state's concealed carry permits. So, yeah, there's no reciprocity, and prior to this ruling, you couldn't get a non-resident. And I think we all know just how bad California is about recognizing the Second Amendment rights. Costas quoted a time, I think he said something like, yeah, here we go. We've also confirmed that whatever lengthy wait times may mean, clearly 18 months is over that line. And, that's how long California was taken to process carry permits. And so this is a lovely legal kick in the butt that will, well, I don't know if this will force California to start issuing non-resident permit. I mean, I know what the ruling says, but we also know what NYSERPA v. Bruin says, and you've seen just how states like California comply with that. But they have the option of, recognizing other states' permits, and so they've at least got a choice. And if they decide not to do either, that's going to go worse for them, I think. Because, when the court says, well, here's the problem, and you can do this or you can do that, and they say, we're not going to do either, that really looks bad. Mm-hmm. So it looks like that, I started to get all hopeful and say, well, it looks like somebody's finally getting it through California's head, but I actually have no evidence in that regard.
Yeah, we're playing opposite day here. I'm the one being the gloomy Gus here, and I will point out that a whole bunch of states have relaxed their gun laws after NYSERPA v. Bruin. The one state that really hasn't is New York, which is where Bruin lives. So. Yeah, the actual Supreme Court said, all right, the whole country, but New York specifically needs to knock this crap off. And New York says, I don't want to. So I don't want to seems to be an effective tactic right now. That's something that politically I think this country is going to need to have to work on moving forward. But unfortunately for these are the only laws that I'm really seeing actually happening is gun laws. And look, the Second Amendment is that one right that nobody really cares about. The Republicans pretend that they like it and then immediately abandon it as soon as they win office. So we'll see if we luck out with this one and someone decides to start releasing legislation that say pulls all federal funds. Like, fine, we'll stop. You pave your own highways. We're not going to give you any money for it. Farm subsidies, like California. Hey, California, do you like farm subsidies? Well, guess what? You're not getting ever again until you stop it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. But again, this is one of those ones, that you've got California, New York, Massachusetts are three states that I know specifically do not recognize other states' permits, and New York and California do not have any avenue for issuing a permit, and Massachusetts makes it a royal pain in the butt, as we outlined in the last show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got this sort of complicated position where on the one hand, I don't want to give the government any more power because it already has too much. But on the other hand, when SCOTUS says something and then you've got states going, no, we're not gonna, that shouldn't be allowed to fly either. And so I somewhat agree with you, but I also somewhat disagree just because, don't feed the tiger anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the U.S. Constitution is written very, very brilliantly, but that appears to be a little bit of a blind spot in there. Is that there's not really a true path for feedback loop for what happens when the Supreme Court rules that a law is unconstitutional, and then the state that has the law decides, no, we're still going to keep enforcing it.
Mm-hmm. Of course, I figure California is also going to appeal this ruling, because why wouldn't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. So, yeah, we'll see where that goes. And then last, here's one that I'm starting to feel that this one I've got some positive feelings on it, because this is one of those ones I've been talking about it for ages. It's one that I'm looking at very, very closely for personal reasons, because I live in Massachusetts. But yes, the Supreme Court, they're seeking Supreme Court review of Maryland's assault weapon ban. And I believe this is an assault weapons ban and magazine capacity. I know that Maryland has a magazine capacity limit. But this one, again, is coming from so many different angles. There is just a whole bunch of different states that are challenging their state assault weapons ban because, again, it's fall. I mean, AR-15s and double stack pistols are as ubiquitous a firearm as you can get. So a law saying that you can't have those guns or can't have them in the most common configuration is absolutely is absolutely unconstitutional under the Heller and McDonald decision, let alone the NYSERPA test added on to that.
Well, didn't one of the didn't Rahimi admit that AR-15s are in common use? Or am I misremembering that? I could have sworn that there was a judgment from SCOTUS recently that one of the more liberal and therefore more anti-gun justices actually admitted that the AR-15 is in common use.
Yes. Yep. No. You jogged my memory on that one. I'm like, that sounds familiar. Yeah. No. I believe that was Justice Sotomayor, and she openly said that a firearm as common as the AR-15, needs to be controlled.
So, I mean, expect that quote to be heavily exploited.
I hope so.
Well, I mean, if it's not, then the lawyers aren't doing their job.
Yep. But yeah, no, there's a ton of states out there that either have assault weapons bans or magazine capacity bans. And and again, these are some of the most common firearms. Like, seriously, I've got a massive list of guns that I would buy that I really, really want and would be perfect and would be social choices, not just, not just, oh yeah, wanna. Obviously, yeah, wanna, but also, no. These would be very, very excellent firearms for personal protection, home defense, and that sort of stuff for exactly what they are. But I can't get them because I live in Massachusetts, and a whole bunch of other people can't get them or have to deal with all these like hinky, weird workaround, the California featureless rifles and that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is something that absolutely just needs to go away. Oh, and also I own a drum magazine. It's up in Maine, but I do own a drum magazine and I want to bring it home. But
is that for your FAL?
It is. It's actually for any kind of AR-10 style gun. So they do make FAL drums, but this one happened to be on sale. So
I got you to say it. You called it FAL. You always go FAL.
I do.
I tricked you into saying it my way.
You made me bleed my own blood.
I wasn't trying to, but I'll take the win.
I appreciate the little victory lap that you took. It's a small victory. I win. But yeah, it's for my freaky deaky bullpup, and I think it will be absolutely hilarious. But right now I don't want to tempt the tiger because frankly, I enjoy spending my money on things other than court cases, especially since there are so many court cases aimed directly at this. So I'm hoping, again, I heard, and again, I don't understand how the rules work or how the policies work with the Supreme Court, but I'd heard that essentially the Supreme Court has said that they're not going to be picking up any Second Amendment cases in 2025, but I got to imagine they've got to find this pretty hard to deny. I mean, there's a lot of people, especially when you realize like California is such a gigantic state. I mean, really, I think the entire West Coast of the United States has an assault weapons ban. And then, even more so than if you, go even further west down to Hawaii. Just so many assault weapons and magazine capacity bans, and all the millions of people that live there are all under this effect. And then of course you've got states like, New York, New Jersey, this is Maryland, Massachusetts. Like there's a lot of people that are affected by this. I understand that the vast majority, if you're listening to this, likely you could just go up the street, buy yourself a reasonably priced AR-15 and a chub pack of Magpul magazines and go on with your day, or you're currently carrying a Glock or some other double stack 9mm with a whole bunch of bullets in it, and no problem at all. And that's that's all well and good, and the vast majority are like this, but there's a whole lot of people that are under this, and it'll really cause a lot of relief to a lot of people to suddenly not have this, and suddenly we can buy big boy guns like everybody else.
So the ideal intro for this would be David goes incognito at goal, but it doesn't work because incognito wear is for the ladies. David explains.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. Continuing with my series on the Gun Owners of America Goals Expo, in this segment I'd like to start talking about Friday, which was Media Day. As a member of the alternative media, I had a chance to wander around the convention center and talk to some of the vendors without the distraction and noise of a crowded venue. While there, I was able to record brief interviews with a few of them. For this installment, I talked with Jan Wolbrecht, founder and president of Incognito Wear IX, which specializes in concealed carry wear for women.
I'm talking with Jan Wolbrecht from
Incognito Wear IX.
Incognito Wear IX.
Like Roman numeral 9, because most people carry 9mm.
I used to carry 45, but...
Well, I'm a woman.
Yep.
But there are women that carry 45, so...
Yeah, well, we used to live in New York, which has a magazine ban, so if I was going to only carry 10, I wanted to be 10 big ones. We moved to the free country of Tennessee, and I switched to 9 because I can carry more.
Yes.
But anyway, tell me about your company, how it started. What's the background?
Well, crime started getting bad. I was working a day job. Knew coyotes were there. I'd go in at dawn.
2- and 4-legged.
Yes. Shebang. Yeah. And my husband's like, you need to start carrying. I mean, we were told there were coyotes. So that started my journey. I didn't know anything about guns. My husband was a lifelong hunter, so he taught me quite a bit about it. But your spouse is not going to be your best teacher. Unfortunately, we don't learn that way.
Yeah, I'm a firearms instructor, and I have taught my wife, but I know that it would be better for her to get additional instruction from another trainer, preferably a female trainer who can address some of those issues, which is, like I said, why I love seeing these types of things, because it's encouraging women. It's lowering the bar of entry.
Absolutely.
For women shooters.
Absolutely. And that's really the full scope of my business. So I didn't know how to conceal carry. I wasn't comfortable. I looked in my closet. I'm like, I have absolutely nothing to wear. My husband's like, come on, we got to go. And I'm like, I want to carry today. And I fiddled. I was, I didn't want to get called out by a Karen. And then what do I do if somebody's like, oh my God, she's got a gun?
Yeah. And unfortunately, women's fashion is much less amenable to concealed carry than men. Men can wear bulky, blousy clothing and it's no big deal.
Right.
Women will be judged for that by other women.
Right. And pockets are small too. So
we were talking
fits.
About pockets.
And so that's why I just started creating. I did interior design for over 20 years. And so that creative juice just started coming out. I need to make it easy for women to carry on body. There needs to be a go-to garment that you can grab, that you look good, you feel good, you're still feminine, have a nice shape, but you're armed.
Right.
And that really is kind of what I do. And I realize firearms aren't for everybody, so I have other items to help protect women and keep them empowered.
Yeah, I saw the palm pepper spray over there, which is, my wife has one of those.
Yes, they're good. I have one left of my Tactic key, which you can actually, has a slightly sharpened key in it. I've been told it goes through TSA, but something is better than nothing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the tool that you have on you is better than the better tool that's not on you.
That you left at home.
Yep. And since women do tend to carry smaller guns, because most women have smaller hands.
Yes.
that makes your job of designing clothing for them a little bit easier anyway.
Not necessarily, because there's so much that goes into manufacturing. So you have to come up with an idea, a pattern, a sketch. You have to find your material. How is it going to hang?
Right.
Is it going to get caught up on the firearm?
Patterns come into that, I'm sure.
Patterns. This was red, white, and blue. My Trinity tunic top was a custom design. It is American made.
Nice.
So I have 2 sons that are Marines. So
Thank you.
Very patriotic. And I just feel that I really need to do made in America. So it is a little bit more expensive.
Possible.
But my clothes are made in America. My holster I designed, it does have a built-in trigger guard, which is like the only one on the market that has that.
That is one of my personal pet peeves for a lot of the women carry items I see. Actually, some of the men carry items as well, where it's just a soft pouch that wraps around the gun and doesn't have a hard surface protecting the trigger.
Yes.
It just it makes me twitchy. So I'm very glad to hear that you're considering that up as well.
Well, I mean, I do. I am yet again looking for another manufacturer because that's very difficult.
Sure.
But it's worth the hassle, to find that, because I really feel strongly, especially in these tumultuous times, people are going to want American made.
Yes.
More and more.
Hopefully after January, that'll be a little easier.
Yes. But I have, they're casual. You can dress them up. You can dress it down. It's professional. If you're a church security team, you've got moms.
That's a good, I teach church security, so that's a good thing for me to mention to them as well.
Yeah.
It's not all guys.
No.
And it shouldn't be all guys.
And I have a tank top with my lion and lamb. It's kind of a mix and match. If you remember Granimals, you match up the zebras and it all goes together for people that at work that are at a desk.
Reference is nice.
And you can carry under the arm. So I've really put a lot of thought into how to multiply the outfit with a minimal investment and get different outfits. Beautiful fabrics, soft fabrics, stretchy, so the woman still feels feminine.
If they're not either physically or psychologically comfortable, they're not going to do it.
And if you can put on this garment and you know that your firearm's not going to print in it, you're more likely to carry. And if you're comfortable in it, once you get home, you're likely to continue and not, I got to get out of these clothes, I got to take this gun off. It's a comforting idea, but I'm trying to make it as comfortable as possible to be on body.
And I'm sure your customers appreciate that a great deal.
They do. I have quite a few repeat customers, very loyal customers.
Any particular products you'd like to highlight?
My signature top is the crossover. I call it the lion and lamb.
Right. You mentioned that.
It's 2 pieces. It does come with a matching tank top. This is the 505 tank top that you can interchange and carry under the arm. You can also carry appendix. And when it's on, you can't even tell there's a gap.
There's just a slit in the front that you can reach through.
Yes.
So you don't have to pull up the shirt.
Yes. And because of the fabric, it's like pajamas. Jersey knit.
Like a very jersey-like material. I was thinking
my sign is weighing it down. Is flattering on plus-size women and petite-size women. And it just hides the gun fabulously. I have a new product that I'm working on, which is a jumpsuit. It's in development stages.
I didn't think jumpsuits were in anymore.
Oh, they're big now. Keeping up with the fashion
I'm a
is a
child of the
challenge
70s, and that was the last time I saw jumpsuits regularly.
Well, and the flared pants are back too.
And I don't get why. Bell bottoms were not a good idea originally.
Well, everything's cyclical.
Yep.
So, but that's my signature. My Trinity top that I mentioned before with the patriotic print. It's 3 layers, asymmetrical, moisture wicking. So ideal for summer. You could even use it as a bathing suit cover up. It's got a little bit of stretch to it, lightweight. What else do I have? I have Abigail. Abigail is a concealed carry dress specifically for more professionals. So obviously you would need a belly band, which is why I have my belly band. But the pocket is a pass-through pocket. And so
but
if you
an
can
actual
carry
functional
at
pocket as well? Or just a pass-through?
Slightly.
Okay.
Slightly. But if you're carrying at the waist, you can get to your gun faster
Mhm.
than losing sight to bend over to hike
Right.
up your skirt to get your thigh holster. This way,
And is the pass-through pocket on both sides?
yes.
As a left-handed shooter, I appreciate that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's,
yeah,
it's one of the things I'm always curious about is how left-handers are considered in design, which is insufficiently in most cases. And I know left-handed women, so
Yeah.
they've
yeah.
got a double handicap in that respect.
Well, and I'm left eye dominant, so I can actually write a little bit left-handed too. But if I'm passing you, I'm going to the left, not
Yeah.
my right. So.
Yep.
But yeah, so these are my designs. Like I said, I've got jumpsuit, I've got tank top, what I call the lion part of my lion and lamb crossover, because this is where the firearm is actually going to come through. So this can mix with the others. They come in 3 colors, from extra small to 3XL. And then
Also jersey material?
super soft. You can, wear something covering a button up, a cardigan. It's just, that you can get to your gun quick and easy.
Very nice.
And if it's at the waist, that's going to be your quickest time to be on point.
I also noticed a bit of an owl motif on some of the decor you have. And I particularly like owls. The bonding thing between me and my grandmother was our love of owls.
Yes.
So I tend to notice them.
Well, it was my sorority icon, but it fits very well into concealed carry.
And wisdom.
You hear them, but you don't see them. And that's the whole idea behind Incognito Wear, is
And when
they're out there, but you don't want to be seen.
Right. And when owls are hunting, you don't hear them either.
No, you don't. Wise, observant, and silent.
Mm-hmm.
So that is
And
my animal
really
totem.
fierce when necessary.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a very good choice.
Thank you for noticing my owls.
I always notice owls and dragonflies, because my wife loves dragonflies.
Okay.
So those are 2 of the things I've been trained to notice. But thank you so much
Thank
for your
you. I
time.
appreciate it. Yes,
And then would you mind if I just take a picture of you in front of your booth?
absolutely.
For our women listeners and those who have women in their lives, I highly recommend taking a look at the Incognito Wear IX product line. Stay safe, stay fashionable.
Is that like an army surplus? Or?
Okay, it has a lot of pockets, but I use them all the time, and I made some of my own modifications.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Erin or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
I mean, oh gosh, men really do have an easier time concealing a firearm when you look at how women's clothing is designed, both how it fits, how it's designed to drape, and the fact that, oh my God, like half the time they don't even have pockets, and when they do, they're like minuscule.
Well, see, this is why the meme exists, that when you have an item of clothing like a skirt or a dress that has pockets, when someone says, hey, I really like that, you must say, thanks, it has pockets. Because if you don't, you will anger the pocket gods, and you will not find another item of clothing with functional pockets in it. It is an overused trope because it's true. And yeah, as someone who dresses both sides of the aisle, yeah, it's completely different because men are very blocky, and it's really easy to design along straight lines. But you introduce all sorts of curves, oh gosh, things are a lot more complicated. So good for her, and I'm gonna look into that Incognito Wear IX. See, that was the thing. I saw the IX. It's like, surely you're gonna pronounce it 9. Nope, it's pronounced IX. Okay.
I mean, I kind of like it. It's kind of a double entendre because it is 9, but they're being cryptic.
But the 9 is incognito.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. And also, I will say, David is right about owls. They make zero noise when they fly. When we were up in Vermont, the forest, actually the camp is surrounded by like some really crazy old growth forest, and it is just filled with barred owls, which is actually one of my favorite type of owl. I just really dig them. And they will get to hooting and all that. We actually had a really bad thunderstorm, and I think the lightning really freaked them out because they almost sounded like monkeys. It sounded like I was back in the jungles of Costa Rica, and and so me and my daughter like were running around the camp trying to track down where they were coming from that. And ever so often you would catch, like I would shine my flashlight up into a tree to try to see if we could catch them, and they would see the flashlight and fly. And they would just disappear, like just no noise, no flapping of wings, no nothing. They just don't make any noise until they just start hooting and hollering.
Hooting and hollering. Sounds so Appalachian.
I mean, we were a little far from them Appalachians, but I think, no, the Green Mountains aren't part of that. But either way.
Well, yeah, actually, come to think of it, don't the Appalachian Mountains extend up into Maine?
Mount Katahdin is the northern terminus of that, and that is in central, slightly to western Maine. So,
okay,
it goes from Katahdin all the way down to, I don't know what the final peak or the final trailhead in Georgia is, but
Mount Katahdin.
Katahdin.
All right. In that case, I will allow you to use what I presumed to be a southernism of hootin' and hollerin', but all right, it's Appalachian. You're Appalachian. I'll allow it.
We're gonna close out the show with we're going from a gear interview to a gun review, and Tiny hits on one of my all-time favorite classes of guns, the .22 revolver, with his review of the Ruger Super Wrangler.
Hello all in ACP land, it's me Tiny with another installment of Deep Thoughts from the land of rocks and cows. It's been a busy summer for me, and I apologize for not getting my review of the Ruger Super Wrangler I picked up done sooner. Now there are some caveats before I begin this review. This is my first single-action Army-style revolver. The Ruger Super Wrangler comes with 2 cylinders, one for .22 long rifle and one for .22 Winchester Magnum. And once I figured out how to swap the cylinders, I was off to the races. Now, I typically have the .22 long rifle cylinder in because I use this as my tractor gun, meaning it's in a nylon holster in the toolbox mounted to the fender of my tractor that I use around the farm, and when gophers and other vermin stick their head out, push in the clutch, grab the revolver, and send them to the big gopher mound in the sky. Sometimes it takes a shot or two, but I'm thinking this winter I may take the revolver in to have the crown and forcing cone cleaned up, because I've read some reviews that others have had great success improving accuracy with those 2 little modifications. And what can you expect from a revolver that's only a couple $100? I'm also planning on getting a 3D printer in the near future, and will probably print a barrel shroud that can have a small prism scope mounted to. I have an astigmatism, so I like the prism scopes better than the traditional red dot. The trigger is very smooth from my point of view, but again, this is my first foray into the world of single-action Army, so someone that knows a lot more may call this trigger super gritty or heavy, so your mileage may vary. I haven't shot a lot of .22 mag through the gun because it's overkill for what it's being used for, but having the option is very nice. Personally, I would think that it would be cool in the future if there was a custom shop version that had a 17 caliber barrel and you could shoot 17 Mach 2 or 17 HMR, which are .22 long rifle and .22 Magnum, respectively, neck down to 17. I know that bottleneck cartridges have troubles in revolvers. I have a North American Arms Mini Master in 17 HMR and a Taurus Tracker in 17 HMR, personally, and the Wrangler is going to be replacing the Taurus Tracker as my tractor gun because in the holster, the Taurus did not really fit in the toolbox well. And 17 HMR has gotten a lot more expensive in the past few years. I know that this isn't a lot, but I didn't do a lot of my normal caliber testing for 22s that I would normally do because it is a dual caliber revolver. And a 5.5 inch barrel isn't going to be super accurate. So my normal thing of getting 50 round bricks of all the different types of 22 that I can get my hands on in my area that's readily available, and then doing grouping tests at 10, 20, and 50 yards isn't going to help. Now on to the unfun stuff. I don't know if you've realized it, but it is an election year, and things are getting vicious out there. In these trying times, we must work together and try to acknowledge our own shortcomings and try to learn from each other. If you love either candidate, or wouldn't urinate on them if they were dying of thirst and begging for a drink, we all have to live in this world together. Name-calling ad hominem attacks will get you nowhere. Physical violence and stealing political signs to be petty may end up with you in handcuffs or worse. Stay safe out there. Try to do a good turn for someone. If you have any questions, please let Aaron or Weer'd know, and they can forward them on to me. And remember, kids, in a surveillance society, everyone is a cam whore.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away. Drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is.
All right, so for Tiny, he says he wasn't sure because this is kind of his first foray into it. I haven't shot any of the Super Wranglers, but I have shot several of the standard Wranglers, so the ones that are just 22 long rifle. And their triggers aren't like super duper match grade, but they're pretty darn nice as far as single action triggers go. So yeah, no, this is in no way, shape, or form are they gritty or bad triggers, at least the ones that I've shot, or at least the ones that I've shot that are newer. I was messing around with the Wranglers at the Ruger booth at one of the NRA annual meetings, and some of those have been cocked and dry fired so many times that they were starting to get ratty.
I recall that you're not supposed to dry fire rimfire guns.
I know you're not supposed to do it with older ones. I believe newer ones are
okay.
are a little bit safer than that, but I don't know. I mean, I will say that I have I'm not a big fan, especially of 22 single actions that use the loading gate, because working that ejector rod down that 22 caliber chamber is just, you got to line it up just right. And I get frustrated every time I do it. And I just like, as soon as I start punching out like the last shell, I'm like, I'm not having fun anymore. I don't want to do this. So
my very first gun was a Ruger 22 Bearcat that I got from my mother, and it's got the loading gate and the ejector rod, and I don't have any problems with it. It might be because I have tiny hobbit hands.
Yeah, and it could just be that like I get frustrated before I want to commit to practicing, and I just say I don't want to shoot this anymore, and all that. And
okay.
if I got going to it, I could probably index the cylinder just naturally and get the hang of it. But I am used to, I like the double action, so I like just swinging out the cylinder and pushing the big button. Or actually, a friend of mine has one of the H&R 8-shot 22s, where you just grab the rear sight and pull it up, and it breaks open, and it sprays them everywhere. There's a fountain of 22 casings. Oh, that gun's fun to shoot. But yeah, I think 22 revolvers are some of the best guns to shoot, because 22 tends to be some of the crappiest ammo you can get your hands on. And so by getting rid of the reciprocating slide and all of that stuff, you tend to get rid of a lot of the nonsense that you get with 22s with like jams and feeding issues and that sort of stuff. And if you're going to shoot a lot of rounds, a 22 revolver means that you're not ever thumbing rounds into a magazine, which if you shoot more than a few hundred rounds, your thumb is just going to be all carved up from the feed lips. So, yeah, I love 22 revolvers, though. I will also say that I posted a link to Ballistics by the Inch for especially for Tiny to have a look at. I gotta wonder, like, you get the 22 mag cylinder in that gun. I think it's a 4-inch barrel. I closed the link to the to the Super Wrangler page. I know the regular ones are about 4 inches. Barrel length 5.5 inches. So 5.5 inch barrel. Yeah, out of that it's somewhere to the tune. And again, the Ballistics by the Inch, they're using, I think, like a Thompson Center type firearm where they're cutting the barrel down. And so you don't have the cylinder gap like you do with a revolver. So that there may be some differences there, but essentially there's only like, 100 or more feet per second difference between the very affordable 22 long rifle and the much more expensive 22 Magnum. So I don't know if it's worth if the juice is worth the squeeze, especially how much 22 Magnum can cost. So consider that, Tiny.
The only questions I have on this are, I would imagine that if you're using the Magnum rounds, the Winchester Magnums, that would foul the forcing cone a lot more often. I don't know, maybe I'm completely out of my depth here. But so this is me asking you a question, Weer'd. I actually want you to weigh in. I know what a forcing cone is, and I would imagine that you would get a lot of lead or copper buildup on it just in general, but then when you're firing a Magnum load with a lot more powder behind it, I imagine that will scrape off more material, and that will actually foul the cone faster. Is that accurate, or am I just all ate up?
So you're presenting a very, very possible scenario. I will also note that while 22 Magnum is not producing that much muzzle velocity out of that shorter barrel than 22 long rifle, it is producing a whole lot more fire. So it could also be cleaning the forcing cone a little bit better than that, because there's going to be a lot more heat and a lot more powder burning going on. So I don't know. I think it's 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other.
Okay.
I certainly have heard some talk on shooting very, very hot 357 Magnum loads through like 357 Magnums, where you actually start having some like top strap erosion from where the flame gap is near the forcing cone, and it's actually heating up and causing some material to be eroded away just from the muzzle blast and or the powder pressure and cylinder gap blast. But yeah, but I think under like normal rounds, I don't think it's that big of a difference.
Okay.
I think the big factor is how much it costs for those big long skinny rounds. Really, really cool cartridge, but I think that it absolutely shines a whole lot more in rifles.
At some point I've got to let you shoot my mom's PMR 30 because it is really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to imagine. They pointed out, and they're within striking distance of each other. The 5.7 does through, but I've definitely shot some FN 5.7 pistols, and yeah, they are just straight up cheating.
Well, there's also the fact that it's a short enough barrel, with it being a pistol and all, that there's enough burnt powder that you get the whole RoboCop pistol effect at the muzzle.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I know I'm shooting 22 Magnum, but this feels and looks and sounds a lot more impressive. I mean, it doesn't have the recoil, but everything else, the bang and the flash, and it's just like, oh, I feel like Billy Badass here.
Yeah, I was having that similar experience at the range with my nephew. Is he pulled out his Tokarev pistol, and I've got a CZ52, but I haven't shot that thing in ages. It's really more of just a collector's item. It's really more of a curio for my collection than a practical gun. And but he had that gun out, and he was having some problems with it too, so he wanted me to have a look at it, and suddenly shooting those 30 Tokarev rounds, it kicks less than a 9mm, but oh my God, the blast from that cartridge, it's a spicy round. The bullets aren't very big, but they'll get there in a hurry.
Something our listeners.
Yes. I agree, Aaron. What an excellent and astute observation. Thanks to each and every one of our listeners, and a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content, like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump, and there are some, speaking of Shoguns, in there as well. If you want more, you gotta ask for it.
Also, please remember to rate us, not just on Apple Podcasts. Now you can rate us on Pocket Casts, too.
You got the memo, too.
Yeah. Rate us and subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
And I will say I have not had the opportunity to listen to many podcasts on an Apple product because they burn me like a vampire in a cross. But I will say that I really enjoy the Pocket Cast platform. It is officially become like my favorite podcast listening. There was a few things that were just laid out a little bit differently than Google Podcasts, and so I was just like, oh, I wish it did it like Google Podcasts, and then I figured out how it did it. I'm like, oh, never mind, this is just as good. So yeah, it's a really, really good product. I like it. Maybe if you're on an Apple, you should give it a try as well. And again, you can rate our podcast and everybody else's podcast. If you're listening to us, you probably listen to other people as well. Give them a review on Pocket Cast as well. And you can get more from me at my blog, which is weerdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com. And here weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And assuming I ever get the wherewithal to write things again, you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word. I tried, Weer'd.
You did marvelous. And you know who else does marvelous? Nate Spencer. He writes good music.
So, Weer'd likes revolvers, but doesn't like loading gates and ejection rods. I don't really care for revolvers, but the one I have, ejection gate, just fine. Ejection rod, just fine. Don't try to read any logic into it, folks. Our reasoning is assorted, and so is our podcast. Good night.
Good night.